Let me just remind myself of the title again. The difference between emotionally dumping and expressing a problem. So I think all of us have been guilty at time to time emotionally dumping on another person. I don't think there's anyone that's not done that. Basically, the difference is emotionally dumping is when you are just trying to relieve the stress in your body by telling the story. So you're just letting the stress out onto the other person. And talking about a problem is when you have a goal to heal or resolve that problem. Like you're expressing it because you actually want to resolve it. And you're expressing it through the desire to change in some way. It's very simple. It's only my definition of it. It's not what I'm sure all the psychologists say it is, but this would be my definition of the difference. And it can feel very good emotionally, like letting it out. It's like it's all been bubbling away inside of you, and then suddenly you explode onto the other person, and it feels really good to rant about what an asshole your partner is. It might even in some way feel good for the other person, because the other person might feel like they're helping or doing something. But it's always like a stuck program, like it's like feeding off itself. It's like a stuck program that's not looking to expand and change, but just to have a quick fix, like by moaning about something or a certain situation. And it just encourages that. It just will make you feel worse. And then there's a different type of sharing where you're sharing to actually try to expand, because your goal is to let go of it, not to keep going round about it and just trying to let out some energy from it. The key is more than likely you don't know what the difference is. You don't know the difference between those two dynamics because you're not aware of what your body wants and what your body's doing. And so this is where you have to learn what your body's saying to you and what your body's actually wanting from the situation. So even in this, right now, what is it that you're wanting from listening to this talk? Are you wanting to switch off? Are you hoping that my energy will transform you? Are you wanting to learn from me? Are you enjoying it? Are you liking the intellectual side of things? Are you liking the energy? Are you not wanting to do something else, and so this is your secret escape? Maybe you're listening to it as background noise while you're doing some other work. But a lot of the time we're totally unconscious of what it is we want. The reason we're unconscious of it is because that's how we're taught by society. We're sort of taught to live in all these lies that are piled on top of each other. So primarily the main lie being that you are a separate self. And then we're taught all these bizarre things. So you begin to make up these stories about why you're doing something, and it's actually really removed from why you're doing something. So maybe you're doing something because you want to get attention from someone, but in your mind you're telling yourself, oh, I need to ask them a question about a practical reason. I need to know an answer for this piece of paperwork that I have to fill out. And really, inside your heart, you're wanting attention and you're wanting connection. And this is where all the suffering lies. First of all, the idea that you are someone separate from what's happening. And then all these stories begin to form about you and your life. And what you believe to be true, which is most probably really different from what's actually happening. And you forget about your body because your body doesn't line up with what you believe to be true, because what you believe to be true is not true most of the time. It's a lie. It's not actually what's happening. So your body's like, meh, 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 meh. Our bodies are incredibly sensitive and can really pick up what's happening in a situation. So most humans are walking around living in this lie of themselves, of who they believe themselves to be and who they want to be intellectually. And they have no clue actually what it is underneath that they want, what it is in the unconscious level that they're up to. And we're very simple. We are super simple. Although maybe you like to believe that you're more complicated than you actually are, it's actually super simple the way that you are. Isn't it, Khaleesi? Huh? So on the very simple, basic level, a human is set up to seek for survival, or to move towards survival, not seek, but to move towards survival and reproduction on the very basic level. The spiritual is in all of that. The spiritual is that. To some people, if you're into the spiritual, you think, that sounds very cold and dry of her. But on the human level, we're set up to reproduce and to create, to survive. So to create things, we're really creative beings. We can do all these amazing things with our mind. And so everything is about that on the human level. Isn't that? That's really simple. Why didn't anyone tell you that in school? I'm sure you don't believe me. I'm sure you're like, actually, Lisa, I'm a lot more complicated than that. There is another complication in there that's slightly more tricky, is also there's another part to you. So on the human level, maybe there is this survival part happening, but there's another part that wants home. So the body is set up to always survive, but there's another part that wants home, and that part is, I suppose, coming from this seeking energy that's dreaming about itself and seeking in time for itself. So this is the seeking energy creates this feeling of discomfort. So there's another part that's looking for love, which is home. So this human has these dynamics of that you're set up to survive and to reproduce your genes and to survive in this society and to help other people survive as well. And then there's another part of you that always feels like it's lost something, and then it's looking for home, love. And that's who you are. I don't know why that is set up. I don't know why it's set up that we feel like we lose love and we get caught up in this seeking energy. Maybe it really is about consciousness waking up to itself, like it's expanding and getting more and more complicated, and it's waking up its dream. It's creating this instrument that's looking in the dream that remembers who it is, or these multiple instruments that are remembering who they are. So consciousness is waking up to itself with this human dualistic perspective. It's really quite miraculous. So it's actually, when you break it down, those are the two running motivations. When the seeking energy is there, you're seeking to get love, plus the body is always moving towards survival and reproduction. And that body, the human body that's moving towards survival and reproduction, that's not necessarily coming from a suffering energy. If the seeker's there, then this will all be suffering energy, like it will be difficult. The survival, the fear around money, the fear around production. But we get ourselves incredibly complicated. So we become incredibly complicated because we begin to make up all these stories about ourselves where we think we're good people. Now, that's a very abstract thought. Everybody believes in this thought. Are you a good person or a bad person? I am a good person. Let me show you. And actually, it's an abstract thought. What is a good person? What is a good tree? What is a good wind? Is the wind good when it doesn't create storms? Is a tree good when it doesn't take any food from the soil, any rain from the soil, and lets itself die? Good and bad is a very interesting subject. In our society, we have moral codes, and I completely think that we should have moral codes, and I'm super happy they're there. I'm super happy that somebody doesn't just decide to walk into my house and say, I'm living here, I am stronger than you, and I'm going to take your house. So I'm really happy there is moral codes. Some of them I'm not so keen on, but that's part of living in a collective society of humans. So just that idea is bizarre idea. And the ideas say that you're beautiful, or that you're perfect, or that you have to be perfect, or that somebody's done something really terrible to you. All of these are ideas. They're not actually reality. Did the storm do something terrible to the earth when it flashed lightning at it? On the ultimate level, someone hasn't done something terrible to you. It's just life happening. Is the ocean really bad when it becomes really choppy and the boats sink? What is good and bad? The same with all the ideas that you think about yourself. And all these ideas that you think about yourself affect you, because when you think about them, thinking isn't empty. Thinking comes with particular feelings. So if you start thinking about what an asshole somebody is, and then your body starts being like, who's an asshole? And when you start thinking about how someone wonderful is, someone is, you're like, they're wonderful. So our stories have an effect on the body. They affect our feelings and what we feel. So if you wanted really good feelings all the time, then all you need to do is think good things all the time. But it's not so simple, right? Because our mind isn't designed to do that, to think good things all the time. And also you might begin to see that you're not the controller of the mind. When did you ever control your mind? Who are you if you're not the mind? If you're like, who is this person? Isn't that part of the mind? But anyway, back to subject. So we walk around with a bundle of these stories. They have particular feelings in our body, either positive or negative feelings in our body. If you think things are going wonderfully, then it feels wonderful. If you think they're going terribly, then it feels terrible. And normally we have a specific pattern that our brain thinks. So we have these neural pathways, and they sort of tend to go in the similar circles. And then we do spirituality and we change them slightly. They tend to have a similarity to them. And we believe that what we think is true. And by this point, when we're completely identified with thinking, it's forget feelings, forget what you feel. It's all about thinking. So say if you are having a conversation and you're really not enjoying it and your body's really hurting, you might be telling yourself the story of how important this person is and how well the conversation's going. And so you're completely not aware that inside yourself you just want to get up and walk away. And you might be thinking someone's being really rude, but then your brain is telling you, oh, they're being really nice. But your body's really uncomfortable. But you're saying, oh, look how nice they're being, because they're like, hello, and they're doing all the maybe fake friendly stuff. And we just get used to living in that reality of what our mind tells us, what our thoughts tell us. We forget about the feeling body. We forget about this other part of us, which is really profound and wonderful, and maybe knows a lot more than what we think, because what we think is so much conditioned by other people. And the problem with, though, going back to the feelings, is your feelings become really confused, because you're having all these feelings now from all these years and years of stories, but below all those feelings, there is this natural flow of what your body wants and doesn't want. This natural flow. And this natural flow is crazy, like crazy in the sense it's like the wild lover. Like it doesn't have reason. It doesn't think this is a bad idea because a tree might fall on my head. It just has a natural impulse. And I'm not saying that you should totally live by that. I see the benefits of the intellect, but living solely through the intellect cuts off 90%, I suppose, of yourself. This huge experience of yourself, and this intelligence and this knowledge. Like these bodies know so much. Khaleesi amazes me that every day she knows what time dinner is. She doesn't have a brain to think like we do. She doesn't have to look at her watch and be like, She amazes me. Apparently, I've not seen this, but I've seen her do it with my mum. But when I'm coming back to my house and my mum's in, Khaleesi is up looking for me and excited before I've even got close to the house in my car or if I'm walking. So I'm not even in the driveway and she's already knows I'm coming. Like maybe even 5 minutes before. So it's not smell either. She also always knows when dinner time is. She can sometimes sense when I'm just about to take her for a walk. When we're out in the forest, I'm sure she can smell it, but if she gets thirsty, she can lead us to water. But I'm sure that smell, I'm not sure if water smells of anything. I can smell water actually. Well, I'm not sure what the smell of water is, but I certainly can smell water, whether it's bacteria in the water or bog in the water or something, or chlorine or chemicals. I'm not sure. And we have these natural intelligences inside our body. Our body knows so much more than what our mind does. so much more. And we think that what we're living in is reality and is the way it is. Creates great conflict and lots of arguments amongst people. And I'm not claiming that I fully have accessed that point, like it's something that I still learn about and expand into. Like I find that there's so much more my body knows than my mind knows. But we're taught as humans to always follow logic. But it's amazing. I can tell so much about someone when I meet them. It's just trusting it. I don't always trust it because their story, what they tell you, is so different to what you feel they're like. And then afterwards, when you get to know them a bit, you kind of have this memory that you kind of knew that in the beginning. And in arguments, there's so much, like if a friend of mine is getting angry with me, I can often feel like I can feel it, that they're getting angry with me, or I can feel that there's tension, they've got tension with me. Sometimes before someone calls me, I can feel they're going to call you, and all of us have this. Not just me, all of us, and you know what I'm talking about. But this part is scary because if we listen to logic, then we've got a set of rules that we will work by. If we listen to this other part of us, then it's uncontrollable. How can you control another if you teach them to follow their flow? You can control another if you manipulate them through the mind or physically. But if you teach them to follow their flow, then they'll become radically independent. It's sweet. And this natural flow, and I'm not saying we should totally ignore thinking. Thinking is logical, like you put the information in, but then you let the body do its thing. Like you only need to put the information in a limited amount of times, and then you let the body take over. And it's like an art, unpicking yourself from all the stories that you tell yourself about what's happening. And the key to it is to unpicking it. And I know I hammer on about this, but here I go with my hammer again. That's my hammer, just in case you can't see the hammer. Here we go. That's my hammer. And get this, right, with Khaleesi, what I never understood about Khaleesi is that she never lived in a house until she came back to Europe from Thailand. And she never experienced having a door because I lived in a bungalow, like you didn't really have doors. It just was all open plan. It was like outside on stilts, and she just came and left when she felt like it. And I didn't really ever lock the door, if I was going out, but not always then. But she was never locked inside. She was a wild dog living in nature. She just used my balcony as the bed. So we never had a door, and we never had. But when she came back to Europe, as soon as she heard the doorbell or knocking, she always knew what it was. It's like genetic in her imprint. Like she knew. She just knew that meant somebody coming to the house. That meant bark, even though she'd never experienced it before. It's like ancestral, passed down. Okay, so back to my point. What was my point? Je ne sais pas. It always comes. If I sit here, it comes. It sometimes takes time. So it's really radically liberating to follow your flow. Like your body knows what to do. You need to put the information in. So you put the intellectual information in, like a train comes now, this train comes then, I've got the choice between this and that. This is called table, that is called floor. So you put the information in and then your body knows what to do. And then your mind starts, but it's going to be a disaster. If I do it like that, it will be a disaster, because my dad always taught me that it was a disaster if things were done like that. But I'm not conscious that my dad always taught me that. So I'm just going to say it was a disaster, and that's what I think, and that's fact. And that's the way it is. It's going to be a disaster. You have to plan things out. And as soon as you get into that negative flow over something mental, you know that you've gone into old thought patterns that aren't in flow, that you don't need to go into. It's like taught thought patterns that collective society has generated. So you recognize that you're in an old thought process of negativity, because it begins to feel shut and closed and contracted. And then you say, what is it that I want? I want it to work out, and I want to sit on top of the train and scream at the top of my voice. And if you find that your being is radiating with love when you think that, or, sorry, I just drank fizzy water. It's like I purposely want to produce gas when I'm live. I apologize, guys. It's some deep unconscious pattern that just is working out. It's like I have to produce gas. It's like I was always told in school I was not allowed to produce gas, so here I am producing gas. It's a joke. Could be true. So if you feel expansive towards that, then that's what you've got to do. So if you begin to have negativity, it's going to be a disaster, and you feel tight and contracted, just move away from the choice and then come back in it when you feel positive. And what is it I want? And you find what you want by that which feels more expansive. Feel it in your body. Not you'll go around in your mind forever, but this could happen, that could happen, this could happen, that could happen, this could happen, that could happen. You only put in the information in the start. You don't keep going around with it. You just say, okay, I want to go on the train. I might get hit by a branch. I might get knocked out. I might get arrested. I might have a massive awakening experience. I might love it. So you list all that out. You put it in. And what is it that makes you feel expansive? I might get arrested. I want to go on top of the train. I don't want to go on top of the train. So that's what you do. It's really simple. And if you begin to get into a mind spin about something, just move away and wait until the mind spin stops. But maybe it's really simple for me because I'm so aware of my body. And I can get into negative mind spins about things sometimes. I think it's a condition of humans. I think it's part of human conditioning. Like I can perceive something as negativity, but I can see it very quickly and I never believe it's true. Even though I might act like it's true in the moment, like there's a knowing that it's not true. The seeking comes from this unconsciousness and this living in this mental activity of who you are. Who you are is none of that. Who you are is this alive presence that's here. And life is not complicated. Life does not need to be complicated. It isn't complicated. It's very simple. It's got complicated because of all these thought processes that you've been taught and all these neural pathways that you've grown about things. And really you just want to come back to the simplicity of what is. Thinking is only needed to help improve your survival. On the human level, you're striving towards surviving well. That's all what thinking's needed for. It's that simple. And in that, enjoyment comes. It's beautiful to meet a partner and to mate and to have children. In that comes enjoyment. Like Khaleesi loves playing games which are based around her hunting. She loves flirting with the boy doggies in town. I give her the option off most days between walking in the forest and walking in town. She always picks town because she wants to go and see the boys. I know, Khaleesi. I know. She would like a boyfriend. I'm ruining your reputation here. I'm saying that you're after the boys. It's so sweet. I would prefer to be walking in the forest, but she loves walking in the town. She's also looking for food as well. She's a scavenger. Even though she doesn't want it, she just still looks for it because that's the enjoyment there. So there's enjoyment in all of these things, but they become unenjoyable because you're living in this mental idea of who you are, and none of it's true. And you don't need to get rid of all that conditioning. You need to lighten it up to an extent, but you don't need to get rid of it. These conditions are maybe there for life with this body because that's the way the body's grown, but it's seeing they're not true and not always following them. Sometimes you follow them because sometimes your conditioning is super helpful. Like it's helpful not to walk out in the middle of a road when a car's coming, but sometimes it creates more pain for you, and maybe over time you'll learn not to follow that. So when I'm in French class, so this is something I talk about a lot now because I'm studying French, I mustn't, because of my dyslexia and what happened to me at school, I mustn't get into a thought process of I can't. So if I feel it coming up, then I just stop and I recognize that a thought's coming up saying I can't do this. And I see that's not true. When I was a child, I really believed that. That's not true, that I can't do this. Of course I can do it. Of course I can learn another language. Even if I'm English. The English in Europe are renowned for being lazy with languages. And so I just have to pause, see that that's not true, and you just laugh at yourself. Of course you can do it. That very belief that I can't do it is what's going to stop me from learning it. I might not be as quick as others, but who cares? Why is quickness great? Or why is quickness better? But when I was a child, I used to think that not being as quick as other kids or not being able to do things like other kids meant that I couldn't do it. This is where we become unconscious and then we seek in this timeline so to be something. So I got into this mentality of I couldn't do things, I was dyslexic, I was disabled, they even called me disabled, and I used to get into that mentality. And then I used to believe that about myself. I almost used to attract it because it would make me exhausted and not want to study things. So I almost attracted that towards myself. And then I got sort of buzzes out of telling, not telling people, but getting extra attention or being allowed to go to the toilet a lot or being different from everybody else. So there were like benefits in there for me, particularly getting out of class. And even actually in being sad about it, there was some joy in it because it gave me a problem. It gave me something. It gave me something to be. But none of these stories are true about ourselves. And we often formulate these stories and then we get stuck in the negative stories because the negative stories have immense power to them. They create strong emotion and then we kind of get addicted to it. The emotion gives us endorphins and then we get addicted to repeating that. And that's when you're emotionally dumping, where you keep like emotionally dumping about something and repeating that story again and again and again. Like the story we've had the last couple of weeks of I've tried everything and nothing works for me. That's obviously a story and it's not true, but the people I'm speaking with can't see that it's not true. Or the people that I spoke to in the last sessions can't see it's not true. They're so convinced that it's true. So convinced. And by the end of me speaking and working with them, they're like, but what do I do? I've done everything and nothing seems to work. I'm like, it's not true. It's a thought. You just need to recognize the thought and drop it. And it's not even you doing it. It's a functioning that happens. It's a recognition and a functioning of dropping that thought. It's something that happens. It happens because that's not you. Even that idea that that's you is an idea that's not true. It's an idea. Who is this you? Who moves this hand? Who thinks these thoughts? Who sees from these eyes? Who speaks from this mouth? That is even a thought. The idea of you is even a thought that comes and goes. In this moment, in the without thought, without thinking, who are you? God, I love this subject. It's so exciting. And this moment, who you are, is love. It's my little dashboard on the computer. It's quite cool, eh?